Come on, get your cockles.
Je voudrais.
Yeah, what's that? Les petits
cockles.
Breakfast, is it? Deux billets, 2 tickets.
S'il vous plaît.
Any time, Governor. Come again. Down and out in Paris and London. The podcast.
I don't know if I can hear that in the background. It's absolutely hailstoning like you wouldn't believe outside my window. So if you can hear this pattering of noise, then that's what it is. It's almost biblical, actually. It's quite frightening. But then again, I am losing my mind as I sit here in my little broom cupboard, talking into a microphone, staring at the walls. Oh, let's get back to normal, should we? Or whatever normal is. Chapter 27, that's normal, isn't it? Let's get on with that, should we? We've got a time marker. Look at this. At about 5:45, the Irishman led me to the spike. So let's have it, shall we? Let's crack on with chapter 27. Chapter 27. Alles klar. Come on.
At about 5:45, the Irishman led me to the spike. It was a grim, smoky yellow cube of brick, standing in a corner of the workhouse grounds. With its rows of tiny barred windows and a high wall and iron gate separating it from the road, it looked much like a prison.
And it uses the semantic field of imprisonment, doesn't it, there, with barred, high walls and iron gates, drawing on the semantic field of imprisonment.
Already a long queue of ragged men had formed up, waiting for the gates to open. They were of all kinds and ages, the youngest a fresh-faced boy of 16, the oldest a doubled-up, toothless mummy of 75.
Oh, he sounds like quite a catch. A toothless mummy of 75. Chromomorphism, would you agree? If he's being compared to a mummy, I would say so.
Some were hardened tramps, recognizable by their sticks and billies and dust-darkened faces. Some were factory hands, out of work. Some agricultural labourers. One a clerk in collar and tie. 2 certainly imbeciles. Seen in the mass, lounging there, they were a disgusting sight.
I bet they were. That asymptotic list there, I almost didn't stop it for that, but I thought if I speak over the top of it, it gets confusing. So an asymptotic list to show the range of kinds of people, eccentric characters that he meets.
Nothing villainous or dangerous, but a graceless, mangy crew, nearly all ragged and palpably underfed. They were friendly, however, and asked no questions. Many offered me tobacco, cigarette ends, that is. We leaned against the wall, smoking, and the tramps began to talk about the spikes they had been in recently.
I was just trying to think about that last sentence of the last paragraph there. There's sort of a bathos. What's that you say? Bathos at the end of a paragraph? Surely not. There's some bathos there that the tobacco that he's offered actually is not really proper tobacco, it's cigarette ends. And that's an anaphoric reference back to the previous chapter where the Irishman had his tobacco, or rather he had a little OXO tin full of tab ends of cigarettes.
It appeared from what they said that all spikes are different, each with its peculiar merits and demerits. And it is important to know these when you are on the road. An old hand will tell you the peculiarities of every spike in England, as at A, you are allowed to smoke, but there are bugs in the cells. At B, the beds are comfortable, but the porter is a bully. At C, they let you out early in the morning, but the tea is undrinkable. At D, the officials steal your money, if you have any.
I can't be able to stop it.
Interminably. There are regular beaten tracks where the spikes are within a day's march of one another. I was told that the Barnet St Albans route is the best, and they warned me to steer clear of Billericay and Chelmsford, also Ide Hill in Kent.
Notice the proper nouns
Chelsea
here.
was said to be the most luxurious spike in England. Someone praising it said that the blankets there were more like prison than the spike. Tramps go far afield in summer, and in winter they circle as much as possible round the large towns.
Is that litotes there, would you agree? That the blankets there were more like prison than the spike. This is the most luxurious in Chelsea. That the blankets there were more like prison than the spike. Well, that's saying something, isn't it? That if a prison is better than a normal lodging house, so it's litotes. It's a backhanded compliment, really.
Where it is warmer and there is more charity. But they have to keep moving, for you may not enter any one spike or any 2 London spikes more than once in a month, on pain of being confined for a week. Some time after 6 the gates opened, and we began to file in, one at a time.
So we've got another time marker there, giving us that sense of a day in the life.
In the yard was an office where an official entered in a ledger our names and trades and ages, also the places we were coming from and going to. This last is intended to keep a check on the movements of tramps. I gave my trade as painter. I had painted watercolours, who was not. The official also asked us whether we had any money.
There's that rhetorical question there, the direct address. I'd painted watercolours, who's not? Well, I haven't, I don't think. But he's addressing the reader directly there and suggesting that we've all painted watercolours.
And every man said no. It is against the law to enter the spike with more than 8pence, and any sum less than this one is supposed to hand over at the gate. But as a rule, the tramps prefer to smuggle their money in, tying it tight in a piece of cloth so that it will not chink. Generally they put it in the bag of tea and sugar that every tramp carries, or among their papers. The papers are considered sacred and are never searched. After registering at the office, we were led into the spike by an official known as the tramp major.
Another time-fronted adverbial to give that sense of chronological progression as well.
His job is to supervise casuals, and he is generally a workhouse pauper, and a great bawling ruffian of a porter in a blue uniform, who treated us like cattle. The spike consisted simply of a bathroom and lavatory, and for the rest, long double rows of stone cells, perhaps 100 cells in all. It was a bare, gloomy place of stone and whitewash, unwillingly clean, with a smell which somehow I had foreseen from its appearance, a smell of soft soap, Jay's fluid, and latrines, a cold, discouraging, prisonish smell.
A little bit of zoomorphism there, isn't it? Treated us like cattle. And then to finish off the paragraph, you've got that triadic structure, a cold, discouraging, prisonish smell, using the olfactory senses, the good old olfactory senses. Funder loved them, Orwell loves them, we all love them.
The porter herded us all into the passage.
So more zoomorphism, herded us into the passage.
And then told us to come into the bathroom, 6 at a time, to be searched before bathing. The search was for money and tobacco, Rompton being one of those spikes where you can smoke once you have smuggled your tobacco in, but it will be confiscated if it is found on you. The old hands had told us that the porter never searched below the knee, so before going in, we had all hidden our tobacco in the ankles of our boots. Afterwards, while undressing, we slipped it into our coats, which we were allowed to keep to serve as pillows. The scene in the bathroom was extraordinarily repulsive. 50 dirty, stark-naked men elbowing each other in a room 20 feet square, with only 2 bathtubs and 2 slimy roller towels between them all. I shall never forget the reek of dirty feet.
More olfactory sense there. Can you imagine it? Well, we don't want to imagine, do we? Good grief. What a scene that must have been. But really playing on the senses there to immerse the reader, begrudgingly, I think, going against our will, dragging us kicking and screaming into this bathroom with 50 stark, naked, dirty men. Gosh, what a thought.
Less than half the tramps actually bathed. I heard them saying that hot water is weakening to the system, but they all washed their faces and feet, and the horrid greasy little clouts known as toe rags which they bind round their toes. Fresh water was only allowed for men who were having a complete bath, so many men had to bathe in water where others had washed their feet. The porter shoved us to and fro, giving the rough side of his tongue when anyone wasted time.
That metaphor then, giving the rough side of his tongue, is a figurative way of characterising this character, the porter, meaning to be rough with them and to be abusive and hurtful, and saying insulting things to them. But it paints him in a much more larger than life way. It's more of a caricature style of characterising him, which is common in Funder and in Orwell, because of course he needs to, and they need to bring these characters to life so that we can imagine what they're like, and it's a way of immersing the reader. And I keep saying that, but it's about immersing the reader into this world.
When my turn came for the bath, I asked if I might swill out the tub, which was streaked with dirt, before using it. He answered simply, "Shut your f***ing mouth and get on with your bath." That set the social tone of the place, and I did not speak again. When we had finished bathing, the porter tied our clothes in bundles and gave us workhouse shirts, grey cotton things of doubtful cleanliness, like abbreviated nightgowns. We were sent along to the cells at once, and presently the porter and the tramp major brought us supper across from the workhouse. Each man's ration was a half-pound wedge of bread smeared with margarine, and a pint of bitter, sugarless cocoa in a tin billy. Sitting on the floor, we wolfed this in 5 minutes, and at about 7 o'clock the cell doors were locked on the outside, to remain locked till 8 in the morning. Each man was allowed to sleep with his mate, the cells being intended to hold 2 men apiece. I had no mate, and was put in with another solitary man, a thin, scrubby-faced fellow with a slight squint. The cell measured 8 feet by 5 by 8 high, was made of stone, and had a tiny barred window high up in the wall, and a spy hole in the door, just like a cell in a prison. In it were 6 blankets, a chamber pot, a hot water pipe, and nothing else whatever. I looked round the cell with a vague feeling that there was something missing. Then, with a shock of surprise, I realized what it was, and exclaimed, "But I say, damn it, where are the beds?"
We've got here some numerical lexis, the dimensions of the cell, and the... Oh, I thought it'd give you the dimensions of the bed, but there are no beds, just the dimensions of the cell, and then a list, a limited list of the things that there are in there with, more numerical lexis with 6 blankets, and a very short list of things that are actually in the cell, even given that simile like a prison.
"Beds?" said the other man, surprised. "There aren't no beds. What do you expect? This is one of them spikes where you sleeps on the floor. Christ, have you got used to that yet?" It appeared that no beds was quite a normal condition in the spike. We rolled up our coats and put them against the hot water pipe, and made ourselves as comfortable as we could. It grew foully stuffy, but it was not warm enough to allow of our putting all the blankets underneath, so that we could only use one to soften the floor. We lay a foot apart, breathing into one another's face, with our naked limbs constantly touching and rolling against one another whenever we fell asleep. One fidgeted from side to side, but it did not do much good. Whichever way one turned, there would be first a dull, numb feeling, then a sharp ache as the hardness of the floor wore through the blanket. One could sleep, but not for more than 10 minutes on end. About midnight, the other man began making homosexual attempts upon me. A nasty experience in a locked, pitch-dark cell. He was a feeble creature, and I could manage him easily, but of course it was impossible to go to sleep again. For the rest of the night we stayed awake, smoking and talking. The man told me the story of his life. He was a fitter, out of work for 3 years. He said that his wife had promptly deserted him when he lost his job, and he'd been so long away from women that he had almost forgotten what they were like. Homosexuality is general among tramps of long standing, he said. At 8, the porter came along the passage, unlocking the doors and shouting, "All out!" The doors opened, letting out a stale, fetid stink.
More olfactory senses there to immerse us in the stink, the stale, fetid stink. Almost onomatopoeic, isn't it? I don't know, the way you sort of spit out the word stink.
At once the passage was full of squalid, grey-shirted figures, each chamber pot in hand.
So even the men here are reduced to figures. They're not men as such. There's chromomorphism reducing them to just figures.
Scrambling for the bathroom. It appeared that in the morning only 1 tub of water was allowed for the lot of us, and when I arrived 20 tramps had already washed their faces. I took one glance at the black scum floating on the water and went unwashed. After this, we were given a breakfast identical with the previous night's supper, our clothes were returned to us, and we were ordered out into the yard to work. The work was peeling potatoes for the paupers' dinner, but it was a mere formality to keep us occupied until the doctor came to inspect us. Most of the tramps frankly idled. The doctor turned up at about 10 o'clock, and we were told to go back to our cells, strip, and wait in the passage for the inspection. Naked and shivering, we lined up in the passage. You cannot conceive what ruinous, degenerate curs we looked,
So we've got a bit of hyperbaton there, a little bit of hyperbaton there with naked and shivering. You'd expect it to be white. We lined up naked and shivering in the passage, but no, he's brought that to the front of the sentence to emphasise its importance and degradation. Naked and shivering, we lined up in the passage. You cannot conceive what ruinous, degenerate curs is zoomorphic. Zoomorphic. Because it's, dogs, aren't they, curs? Types of dogs, like mongrels. So it's another zoomorphic phrase.
There in the merciless morning light. A tramp's clothes are bad, but they conceal far worse things. To see him as he really is, unmitigated, you must see him naked. Flat feet, pot bellies, hollow chests, sagging muscles, every kind of physical rottenness was there. Nearly everyone was undernourished, and some clearly diseased. 2 men were wearing trusses, and as for the old mummy-like creature of 75, one wondered how he could possibly make his daily march. Looking at our faces unshaven and creased from the sleepless night, you would have thought that all of us were recovering from a week on the drink. The inspection was designed merely to detect smallpox and took no notice of our general condition. A young medical student smoking a cigarette walked rapidly along the line, glancing us up and down, and not inquiring whether any man was well or ill. When my cell companion stripped, I saw that his chest was covered with a red rash, and having spent the night a few inches away from him, I fell into a panic about smallpox. The doctor, however, examined the rash and said that it was due merely to undernourishment. After the inspection, we dressed and were sent into the yard, where the porter called our names over, gave us back any possessions we had left at the office, and distributed meal tickets. These were worth 6pence each, and were directed to coffee shops on the route we had named the night before. It was interesting to see that quite a number of the tramps could not read, and had to apply to myself and other schollards to decipher their tickets. The gates were opened, and we dispersed immediately. How sweet the air does smell, even the air of a back street in the suburbs, after the shut-in, subfecal stench of the spike. I had a mate now.
Subfecal. There's a phrase. More olfactory senses there.
For while we were peeling potatoes, I had made friends with an Irish tramp named Paddy Jacks, a melancholy, pale man who seemed clean and decent.
Actually, just backing up a little bit, these schollards you mentioned, there's kind of a malapropism in a way, isn't it? Because he means scholars, presumably, but he's sort of saying schollards, which sort of, I don't know where the D comes from, but it's sort of like a triad sort of thing, isn't it? Or before its time, maybe. Or maybe they had that, but I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it's sort of interesting, either a neologism or a malapropism or a portmanteau word. Who knows? But it's interesting how they've corrupted language or adapted language to serve their own purposes, and they sort of have their own, as we say, their own sociolect or dialect. I think I've attempted in an essay like the one you're writing to refer to as a sociolect, because it is that, and it also shows that you understand what a sociolect is. You're a sociolect.
He was going to Edbury Spike and suggested that we should go together. We set out, getting there at 3 p.m. It was a 12-mile walk, but we made it 14 by getting lost among the desolate North London slums. Our meal tickets were directed to a coffee shop in Ilford. When we got there, the little chit of a serving maid, having seen our tickets and grasped that we were tramps, tossed her head in contempt, and for a long time would not serve us. Finally, she slapped on the table 2 large teas and 4 slices of bread and dripping, that is 8 penny worth of food. It appeared that the shop habitually cheated the tramps of 2pence or so on each ticket. Having tickets instead of money, the tramps could not protest or go elsewhere.
Oh, lovely music. Oh, it's like a dream come true, isn't it? London Bridge is falling down. Well, I will see you again for chapter 28, shall we? Let's reconvene then. Bye for now.